You might be a B2C business, but you need to maintain partnerships of all sorts, right? What does it take to nurture these? What is the value that you can give to the partner, and what should you derive from it? As you grow across the stages, how does that dynamic change, right? As you grow and build out your own business. So to talk about some of this, again, make it very actionable for everyone that's here. We have Sandeep Lakshman from Amazon, and we have Yashish Thaya from Policy Bazaar. So over to you guys. Sandeep is going to be helming this one. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Sandeep, and over to you. And I'm going to request Yashish, if possible, have your video on. I think it'll just make for a more engaging session. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming on a Saturday afternoon. I know it's a time when a lot of us take rest, but we have Yashish joining us, which is fantastic. While Yashish gets his camera started, and Yashish, you can unmute yourself and get your camera started while he does that. I heard the last few minutes of the discussion, the last 10 minutes, and something really struck me from there and reminded me of the early days of AWS. Right. So I was a founder and I joined Amazon because for one simple reason, I wanted to know, what was it so creative in Amazon that led to the birth of so many companies, including AWS, where I now, of course, work. But interestingly, when I joined, what I realized is in the early days of AWS launch, right, and we're talking about 2006, 2007, where nobody really cared about us. People didn't know what we were doing. There was one guy in our forums who used to give us a lot of complaints, right? He used to complain about it. You say, this thing sucks. You should fix this. It should work this way. It should work that way. And he did like about 80% of the feedback came from this one guy. Now, the interesting thing is, we went back and we checked, okay, this guy must be using, a lot of services because he's complaining so much. Let's go and see how much he's actually billing. And you know how much he was billing? He was billing $2. That was his monthly bill, $2.
Wow.
Right? And but the thing is, he set the initial path for development of our product, right? And that added more to us because we were way ahead of competition right from the start. Of course, most people didn't know our latest competitor started 6 years after Amazon started because they didn't understand the customers, and we understood them. And the reason we did is because of listening to customers, even those who shouted, right? It was a very, very interesting time. And a very, very humbling story, right? So sometimes customers might shout, but listen to them. The reason they're taking time out from their day to shout at you is because they really care about you. The worst customer you want is somebody who doesn't like your product and doesn't tell you why.
Okay. All right. I think while we get Yashish back on, let me actually take some of this to you, right? I mean, AWS is like the mothership of how partnerships run. Right? What you all are doing for the ecosystem, not just with AWS Activate, which is your product for a lot of early stage companies to explore and use. Tell us about how you approach your partnerships, Sandeep. What are some of the things that you've picked up in terms of doing your own activities, and where do you draw that balance that I was talking of earlier, right? Because you don't want to be the big brother. You are the big brother. You don't want to be the big brother. And managing these partnerships, which can be very delicate sometimes.
So a couple of things. Yashish, please let us know when you're joined, when you have your camera on, mic on. We'll get you in. So a couple of things. Number one, I'm not sure if people know, but we have something called Amazon Leadership Principles. And we follow that to the T. And that's the reason, honestly, I joined the company. I wanted to find out what the culture was. And I was so glad I did because I was right. It's the culture of the company that makes it very specific. And the way you look at the leadership principles is there are 14 of them. The one at the top is customer obsession, and the end is deliver results. So the way we look at it is you start at customer obsession, work through the other leadership principles, and you will deliver your results, right? So the primary way which we want to work and which we like to work with is to listen to what our customers are saying. So I'll give you an example. 2 days ago, on 26th and 27th August, we conducted a FinTech Forum. It was a 2-day event attended by 1,000 plus founders, focused on the FinTech vertical, right? And that started because of founders telling us, hey, we want to understand what the top fintechs in the countries are doing, how they approach entrepreneurship, how they approach addressing regulation, how they approach, from the top CTOs, how they approach AI/ML, and that's how actually we started that. And it started 4 years ago. And the first time we did it, we actually did it within our own training rooms. We didn't have budgets. We didn't have a big budget, so we just gave everyone chai and biscuits. And to my surprise, instead of customers saying that, "Hey, what is this? You've not even given us a good meal," they said, "We love this. Can we do it at a bigger scale?" And we actually built on top of that. And now the FinTech Forum has kind of become a community, so to speak. We have Yashish. Hi, Yashish. Thank you so
Hi.
much.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining, spending our valuable time on a Saturday afternoon.
No problem. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. So we had a fantastic discussion on building our community. And, like Saina said, next step of building a community is partnerships, right? And Policy Bazaar has done really, really well in this respect. So we wanted to have a chat with you to pick your brain on, how partnerships has helped you, develop and expand, and make Policy Bazaar the unicorn that it is today, right? If you don't mind, can we start from the early days? Let's start about how partnerships was for you when Policy Bazaar was not a known entity, right? So in the late 2010, in the late 2000s, like 2008, 2009.
Yeah, so see, the first thing we need to appreciate about partnerships and Policy Bazaar is we work with about 50 insurance companies. If these companies don't work with us, we don't have a business because we are essentially sellers of about 50 companies. And the second thing is most of these companies are owned by multi-billion dollar organizations, right? So they're really, really large organizations. It's one of the largest organizations in the world are insurance companies, right? So you're dealing with very large organizations as your partners. And obviously, large organizations, by the very nature of them being large, also take time to make decisions. They are usually they're not known to be the fastest, most nimble, agile movers, and so it takes a lot of patience as well. And of course, only about one or two of them at that stage back in 2008 were doing anything online, right? Like having a single product. When I say online, I mean how many companies had a single product available on their website to purchase. I think I could count the total number of companies, on one hand. Not more than 5 companies had that. So it really starts from there. Now you are entering this particular industry and you want to enable online sales with the same partners who also to some extent do not want to be compared. Please understand, these are multi-billion dollar organizations. As a multi-billion dollar organization, you don't want to be compared with every other organization in your field. There are 50 of you. You as a customer, as a company are trying to build your own brand and you don't want to be compared with the other 50 because that brings transparency, and transparency, as you know, brings competition, and that brings lower price differentiation and all those kind of things. So how does a player get in there? And so we had to, for the first 3-4 years, work more as an advertising marketing partner to these companies, basically saying, look, we are giving you some traffic. You can do whatever you want to with them. Because we didn't have the ability to, at that stage, convert those customers or have the integration with the suppliers where actually those conversions could happen. So 2008 to 11, sales was less than 5% of our revenue. Wow. It was in 2011 that we informed the companies that now we would like to do sales. And it was initially a bit of a shock. In fact, 1 or 2 companies stopped working with us for that. So you can imagine this, right? The company is saying, I just want you to give me leads. I don't want sales, right? But very rapidly, within 1 year, we had to build a lot of volume so that we could start becoming meaningful for those companies. And so our sales in 2011 went 100x. So we as a company grew very fast, but our total premium that we issued through our platform went 100x. And it was a very fast expansion because all we were doing was we're taking our own marketing sources and essentially putting them into sales. So I think with the insurance companies, it has forever been a partnership game on how we evolve the entire industry so that customers can buy more online, right? Because, and you're talking about, again, very large organizations, HDFC, ICICI, Tata, Bajaj, uh, helping them, helping us, helping the customer, all three at the same time. And if you are doing that for 12 years, 13 years, it means you are adding value to all three. Because if you were not, then those partnerships would have failed. Because clearly, if you have a partnership where only one side gains and the other loses, it will not work. So yeah, that's really our story. Of course, we have lots of other formats of partnership, which we can speak about, which are more from a service provision perspective, efficiency perspective, where we feel there can be a short-term advantage in tying up with somebody. But there it's usually short-term versus long-term, or it may be that it can have a big impact on our customers, but like we would do something on a chatbot, we would do something on some claims process where somebody may have evolved the process and we would take advantage of that and kind of move ourselves forward for a while.
Right. Just coming back to the original one which you spoke about, that you started from an advertising partner. By the way, folks, for the folks who are watching, please send in your questions. I have a separate screen open over here where I'm reading your questions which are coming in. So if the questions, we'll just weave it into our conversation which we are having with Yashish. Yashish, so coming back to your partnership through advertisements, that's pretty awesome because you essentially started with one kind of partnership and then you pivoted into a more valuable partnership. Now, what are the success factors that enabled you to pivot? Was it like it took you like 3 years to ensure that and demonstrate that you're able to give them advertising, sufficient leads that enabled you to pivot some of these partnerships, or was it something else completely different?
Sure. So I'll give you a very simple answer to that. In 2008, we started a partnership with Apollo Munich to sell health insurance.
Mhm.
When we started, we were spending 20 rupees and earning 1 rupee. Right? So this
Wow.
partnership was working for them, but it wasn't working for us. And they were also very reluctant partners. They were like, because we were doing very low volumes, they were like, yeah, do it if you want to, but we will not give you this access, we will not give you this access, we'll make it a little more difficult for you. So for the next 3 years, we kept it a very small experiment. And that is the 5% of our revenue that I talk about, that used to come from sales. We kept it a very small experiment. We kept refining it to a point where at some point we were spending 5 rupees and earning 3 rupees. But till that stage, we did not expand it. Please understand, 3.5 years of patience on a small experiment. While the rest of our business kept developing as a inquiries, leads, marketing engine. In fact, we used to also deal with Apollo on the marketing side. So we used to also pass leads to Apollo because we were only doing 20% of our leads were going into the sales funnel, remaining 80% were going into the advertising funnel. But we used to deal through an agency because they would not buy from the same company. They would not do both sales and advertising, right? So there was an agency, if I remember its name, something called Seven something. They used to buy those inquiries from us and sell them on to Apollo. I think Apollo, somebody at Apollo would have known, but this used to carry on. But I think when it got to 5:3, that is when I had the confidence that now we can make it 3:3. In the sense, with a little more volume, with a little more support from Apollo, we would be able to make it profitable for us. And that is when we went to them and we said we now want to expand. And we got a few other things and we expanded. And that is when we called up all the other companies. That was a very risky call. We just called up all the companies and said, we are from, the next month we are stopping advertising altogether. We'll only do sales. And, most of the companies agreed because in the back end, what we had done was we had built up all the integrations by then. So you won't believe it, but junior people from the insurance company would call up because at one time, three companies were responsible for a very large part of our revenue, and one particular company was responsible for 40% of our revenue.
Wow.
So when that person would call up, everybody from me to everyone used to be shaking
Mhm.
because she had the power to kill our company, right? And it was a very, very tough time. And we used to dream that there would be a day when we would actually tell that company that we don't want to give you leads anymore. We don't want to advertise for you anymore. We will only do sales. But we didn't have the ability. So when you don't have the ability, you you take that insulting position that you're in and you live with it. It was a very insulting position we were in because you would suddenly just call up and say, you know what, anybody below 25, I don't want anybody. Eventually, it got to a stage where out of our inquiries, and we got the same inquiries, right? They were taking only 13% of our inquiries. So they were,
Wow.
please understand, I today convert at 10%. So they were basically over 3 years, they had learned enough to say, I only want those inquiries which will convert to sales, otherwise I don't want them. Right? Now, that is bound to happen in any advertising channel. And unless you take hold of your own destiny, eventually you will keep having a shrinking, uh, and they never increase the revenue per inquiry. So revenue per inquiry stayed the same. So it was a very difficult phase, I would say, from a from a strength perspective. But the moment we went to sales, after that we never had that looking back. Then our partnerships became more about how can we grow this better, how can we improve the quality of business, because the quality of business was amongst the best. So how do we reward our customers for this quality of business, etc., etc. So I think 2011 was a pivotal year for us from that perspective. But there were partnerships before, there were partnerships after. Earlier, the partnerships had us in a very, very weak position. Later, the partnerships had us in a much stronger position because we were genuinely creating business and getting paid for it just like anybody else.
I have a couple of questions over here, specifically on the patients, because 3.5 years you conducted an experiment, right? Which essentially was just 5% of your business. And I'm sure at that point of time you would have had pressure from other insurance companies, pressure from your investors as well, to double down on a business that's growing than experiment a small 5% of the business, right? From founder's perspective, I have two questions. Number one, how did you know that this was my golden egg? This is what I want to do in the future. Number two, for the founders over here who are on our call today, right? What was your learning, and what is the best practices that where they should evaluate to ensure that such a partnership or an experiment can go along for 3.5 years to be successful, and they have that patience?
So see, I had the fortune of having worked in a few internet companies earlier. So I had a little bit of experience around how sales models develop, etc. But it wasn't absolutely accurate in saying that we had full knowledge, because when we started in 2008, we actually started with a pretty large experiment with Apollo. And I want to share this story with you. We saw this 20:1, right? We're spending 20 rupees, making 1 rupee.
Yeah.
And we had the money. So it's a kind of warning sign for some of our entrepreneurs there. The one thing could have been, let's keep expanding because we can show the revenue still, right? I remember me and the sales head, we sat down with each other, and I told him that, look, we're at 1:20. We're not at 1:2. We don't need to improve by 50% or 100%. We need to improve by 2000%. He heard me. He was sitting in his chair and he just fell off his chair. I mean that. Huh? He just fell off his chair. He fainted. He was on the ground because this is a very, very conscientious man. He does not like losing. And I can't tell a lie. I can't tell him things are good when things are not good. We got rid of about 2/3 of our people. We had just started. We were 2 months old. And remember, we had $5 million in the bank,
Hmm.
which at that time was a lot of money because we started capitalized. But we got rid of two-thirds of our people. We said, we can't run this. He felt very sad. Everybody felt very sad. A time to rejoice, we were feeling sad. By the way, as a company, we were still breaking even on our operating costs, right?
Hmm.
So we had revenues of maybe 6-7 lakhs and direct costs of 4-5. But this particular experiment, which we believed was the future of our company, was not working, and we did not expand it. And then we sat down and we said, let's keep working on it till. And imagine this guy's patience. He kept running that experiment with that small team for 3.5 years, and we kept watching it. And that was the only thing we were doing for that 3.5 years. And it was my job at that stage to keep the company alive with advertising revenue, lead generation revenue, and all that kind of stuff, right? But the moment we got to 2011, me and Jerry is this guy who still runs our entire sales office, right? Uh, we said, I think we're there now. Now we're ready. Now let's expand. And we went 100x in 1 year. And we just
Wow.
got rid of our remaining advertising lead gen revenue. So 2010, we were 95% lead gen advertising revenue. 2012, we were less than 5%. So the entire organization just moved to being a sales entity. And I think in the insurance world, it was the first open architecture sales entity ever. Because it's very, very difficult to deliver that. It's extremely difficult. And I know how difficult it is to deliver that. And I would even go to the extent of saying there isn't one even today that actually can, in an open architecture manner, open architecture means comparing products and all that kind of stuff and selling, which can actually handle sales and make profits. Uh, for the last 12 years, not a single one has been created.
Right. Right. That's a phenomenal shift. Going from 95% revenue in advertising to 5% revenue in advertising and flipping the sales revenue within 2 years is a massive change.
Within 12
Uh,
months. Within 12
12
months.
months. Oh wow. Wow. That's really massive.
What does it
Just
tell you?
how
It tells you the patience of a lizard. You wait patiently, but when the time comes, you pounce. When
yeah,
you're
it's
ready,
like
you
a
gotta do.
crocodile.
You gotta have both, right? If you pounce when you're meant to be a lizard,
Mhm.
you're going to die.
Yeah.
And if you don't pounce when it's time to pounce, you're also going to die, right? But I think as a founder, you need both. You need the patience to lie low, to keep your experiment. But when you are ready, I think the stupidity is when you're not ready and you tell yourself you're ready
Hmm.
because you want to impress some found investor. Or we had investors walk away. I can tell you there were investors who walked away. They said you got a shit business.
Hmm.
They said you got a shit business, advertising business, not worth it. And I used to keep telling them that don't judge from today, judge from tomorrow. I have been told so and so of your competitors will become much bigger than you because what you guys are doing is not right. Many times. But the point is, I knew what the truth of our business is. And you have to stay focused on that. And you have to know when you will pivot to the next level. I think
Right.
the most important thing is knowing when.
Yeah, it reminds me of this, like the Amazon, right? There's a river, there's a crocodile. It stays low for days together until it sees like a prey walking and just suddenly attacks and then eats it up. This
Absolutely.
this reminds me exactly of that, right? I want to get into another part you mentioned. You said that one of your customers made up 40% of the revenue. And the reason I'm getting into this, we actually have and one of the audience members, Gaurav, who's actually asked us a question around this. And he also mentions, he can relate with the experience that one of his customers had more than 70% of the company revenue and driving product development, priority, content development as well. And eventually, that made the product suitable for a specific set of customers. His question is, what do you do? What do you suggest to get rid of such customers ASAP or restrict such number of customers?
Yeah, see, eventually you have to make your own choice, and I cannot suggest anything. The brave choice somebody will give you is, build your own destiny, don't follow others. But, I am living proof that I followed somebody else's destiny. because at that time, that was the only thing I could afford. I think knowing what your strength is and being very aware of your fragilities is very important. Just being egoistic and saying you're strong all the time may not be appropriate. At
Mhm.
that time, we were weak because it's not our bank balance which would have kept us going. That may have. And that is not the source of my ego, right? That $5 million lying in the bank. The issue was, as a business, we didn't have the strength to make money on the platform or the product that we wanted to make money on. But we had the ability to make money another way, which was a compromise, which is exactly what you have, right? What Gaurav has put this question. So he has exactly the same question that, look, I'm having to follow something, but I don't have the ability to kind of. My view is, as they say, खून का घूंट पीते रहना चाहिए. If you get slapped and blood comes out in your mouth, if you don't have the ability to respond, just keep the blood in your mouth and swallow it, right? But keep moving, but do not stop sharpening your own sword, which might be hidden from everybody. But don't stop sharpening that sword, because at some point you will be ready. You will feel, okay, now I have the strength, and when that time comes, you strike. And if that time never comes, it never comes. So what? You're still living.
Right. Right. I want to move to a little bit in the future. You also, sorry, you mentioned that there are different types of partnerships which are possible, right? So I have two questions. What are the different types of other partnerships that you explored? And number two, did developing each of these partnerships, did that start creating a moat around for your business, right? As more partnerships got added, it create a moat. So these two questions.
See, if so, there are two kinds of partnerships here. One was a clear partnership where we needed the insurance companies for their products. We needed them for the development. We needed them for the tech. They needed us also for the volume, but increasingly, as they have seen over time, they also need us for the tech development. They also need us for the learnings, the market learnings, and it becomes a fairly symptomatic, I don't know, symbiotic relationship, right?
Hmm.
Not symptomatic, symbiotic relationship. So the second kind of partnerships is more short termish. We want to have a particular, let's say we want to have a certain claims facility for our customers. It's not core to us. Handling claims is not core to us, but we have to make sure that facility is available to our customers. We could do that through a partnership. There, the partner gets volume, and we get convenience for our customers, right? So they're somewhat different in the nature. At some point, if I find it really easy, I might replace them. Why? Because I would always like a differentiated service for my customers, right? Because eventually, if they are developing the service, they will give it to 40 other people also. And how do I then differentiate my customers? So eventually, we are a very in-house centric company that eventually we would like to, have everything on our own, even if it takes a little longer. But on the insurance partnerships, it's very important. Your your partner may sometimes not see your side of things. In a sense, they may only be interested in their profitability, their business. They may not be so interested in your profitability, your business. Like was happening in the first 3 years of our living, right? The partner was looking at the marketing cost and saying, okay, for me this works. But they were not thinking, how does it work for Policy Bazaar? They were not thinking about how will the partner survive, right? By every month negotiating the price down, by telling me, okay, Diwali, I don't want inquiries. Holi, I don't want inquiries. Independence Day, I don't want inquiries. If the people are below 25, I don't want them, but I want to continue paying the same amount for those above 25. If, if this, if that, etc., etc. Now, what they were not realizing is that at Policy Bazaar, you're creating the wastage. So you're creating that loss. So that is one kind of partnership where the partner does not really think about you because they don't see you as a long-term partner, right? The second would be the partnerships we have with the insurance companies because we needed a long-term partnership. We had to always think of their profitability. And that is according to me the best form of partnership, because over time you develop so many different ways of creating profit for each other that becomes difficult to replicate. I'll give you some examples. So today we work with an insurance company. The moment they list with us, they also get direct traffic,
Mm-hmm.
which, because your brand appears in the top performing companies, some people will come to you directly also. They get to evolve their technology to stay abreast of all the other players, because suddenly everybody is doing it. So they also have to do the same, uh, you know, platform improvements. Their back-end processes get streamlined for the online because the volume is coming through. Their understanding of product, because they're in a competitive dynamic, they start to understand what the consumer really needs and can evolve their product much faster. Because of the level of declarations coming in, and the declarations being somewhat, you know, market based and consumer provided, they can start to fine tune their product using all that data. And all that data being available in an open architecture manner allows them to really fine tune their product pricing basis data. So I think the quality of business improves, the retention improves. Now the point is, when you are playing on so many different dynamics and you and your partner have reached agreement that you are working on so many different dynamics. And why did that happen? Because somebody was worried. I was worried that, is my partner getting good quality business? Are they benefiting? How all are they benefiting? Otherwise, why should they continue to work with me forever? Right? Because I wanted a long-term partnership. And I think that at some level will build a massive moat, because the other person will come and just give volume. And somebody will say, I'm doing 100 crores, I'll also do 100 crores, but the 100 crores business is crap. In the sense, it's got very poor claims ratios, it's got very poor data, it's got very poor, then it doesn't help. And I think that is the way to keep building moats. Uh, Today we do operational joint ventures with companies, with insurance companies, where we're pretty much working as one team in evolving the insurance company's journey. So I think partnerships can be very, very deep uh, when there is an interest. And why is that interest there? See, I can't become an insurance company ever, because I can't go and compete with the insurance company. So I have no interest in competing with the insurance companies. I only have an interest in evolving them so that
Right.
they become better and better. So my customers get better experience. And they also have an interest because they get a lot of their volume from me. So why would they want to give a poor experience to their own customers at the end of it, right? That's something companies realize with in hindsight, that earlier there was, we'll have a differential experience for policy and a differential experience for person coming on our website. But over time they realize they're your customers. Why would you put your worst step forward on the market platform? That's like stupidity, right? So I think people realize over time, and egos do get solved and moats do get created. But then you have to have a multidimensional view to partnerships.
Right. We do have a few questions coming in. I'm going to take a couple of them as well. So one is, which has come privately, is so there are a couple of questions around how do you measure the effectiveness of a partnership, right? So how do you measure? Of course, businesses are different, and yours is going to be very specific to you. But for the founders here, how could they measure whether a partnership for them is going to be good at the long term? What KRAs that they should they be tracking?
What can you do without the partnership? What can you do with the partnership? What are the differences between the two? That is your KRA, right? You know what's happening without the partnership. Let's say I, uh, we did a chat bot, right? With Amazon Poly, right?
Yeah.
Now the thing is, I could do it without, I could do it with the partnership. Without the partnership, what was the business I was getting? What was the customer convenience I was getting? And what am I getting with the partnership? It's really that simple. Really, a partnership is all about, what would life be without this? What would life be with this? Because even when Gaurav asked that 70% question, the simple question is, okay, if you said no to them, how would your life be? And if you work with them, how is your life today? Right? I think that is your true A/B test. Uh, at the metrics, I would have would be whatever your business metrics, whatever your business objectives are. Whether it is, for us, it's insurance premium. And there's a reason why we use insurance premium, because number of customers can be doubled in our industry. So, it's not like I don't value customers. The reason I value premium is because that seems to be a non-fudgeable number. Uh, because, you appreciate, right? A family of four who's buying a health insurance, if I make them all buy four different health insurance policies, that becomes four customers. So this is just something that we learned over the period of time, that we focus on premium. And the second thing we focus on is customer satisfaction. So we have NPS scores, right? So we look at those two all the time. And we specifically have something called an NPS drop. See, when a person buys a product, he's almost always happy. Otherwise, why would he have spent $200 with you, right? 20,000 rupees with you. The point is, how does he feel 20 days, 30 days after he's bought the product, after he's received the product? How did that whole service angle go? And we used to have a 40%. So we had a very high NPS at the point of purchase, 95. And I'm amazed who were those 5% who were not happy and still buying. But anyway, right? But by the time products were issued, for the products that required an issuance process, 40% our NPS had dropped. So this 95 would go to 55. Oh yeah, it's a very painful process. Insurance is a very, very painful process. We have reduced that NPS drop to 20%, 22% or so latest. But I measure that NPS drop very carefully. Now the point is, if today I tie up with, let's say, a new form of eKYC mechanism, then I have to see, did my NPS drop reduce or not? Did from 22 it come down to 15%, or did it go at 28%? I think, see, I can't give a single metric for all businesses, but you know what your metric is for that business. And I think it is with or without the partnership that you need to compare the two. And I intuitively do that all the time. So whenever we're getting into a partnership, we do that all the time.
That's very interesting. So measuring the continuous, so you're not measuring the customer satisfaction just at one point of time. You're actually measuring it over a period of time and seeing whether a partnership impacts it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think a holistic view is important, which is why with insurance companies, we requested many of them, especially our larger partnerships, to start treating it like an operational JV. So you can start to see, how is this competing with your overall business? This entity, how is this performing vis-a-vis your business, your normal business, right? So let's say with HDFC Life, if I have an operational JV, which is working Policy Bazaar, so they have to see, how is the Policy Bazaar business doing vis-a-vis everything else on all the parameters that they have of their normal business, of their agency business, of their bank assurance business, because unless it is better, why should they deal with me?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also remember, when we were having this big discussion with your then CTO, Ashish, to move on-premise to AWS and automate a lot of things, the key KRAs from our side, which was given to us, was how quickly we can help you innovate, right?
Absolutely.
That was actually coming back. That was so, and now when you say this, I can actually connect the dots going backward. That was one of our key KRAs during that. There's one more question which has come privately, and I think we are almost out of time. So we will take one or two more questions. One is, what approach so you mentioned, you started off with advertising business, and you got, you were piloting your sales business with a few of them. Now, the question which one of the founders have got is what process, like how did you identify that these are the customers that I'm going to start partnering with? How do you identify those first early adopters? Because you have such a big market. How do you identify?
We obviously tried with everyone.
Right fit for you?
We tried with everyone. It is a difficult process. It's not like we selected our, but the ones who had evolved processes had the chance of benefiting from the partnership. See, if you have nothing at all today, you don't have the right products, you don't have the right processes, then even if you partner with me, you may not benefit much, because your product will come out last, your processes will just not work. So our partnership focus was on those who could potentially have a chance of benefiting. So I won't take the names of the ones who we, uh, did not put as much emphasis on. But the ones that we put a lot of emphasis on were people like HDFC, Tata, Bajaj, ICICI, uh, Aegon Religare, a lot of the health insurance players, Apollo Munich, uh, Bax Bupa, Star Health. These are the players in those days we put a lot of emphasis on. And with the others, we let it be for some time. And when the time was right, we approached them as well. Because, eventually you're going to put in effort and you're going to get result out of it. If it takes too much effort for that result, then it may not, it may be better spent. You only got finite amount of time. So, for example, with the public sector undertakings, we really started putting in an effort about 2015-16 timeframe. Please appreciate that is almost 8 years after we started. And then we got them on board, and today's public sectors are almost 40% of our sales. But it took because in 2008, I would have been banging my head against a wall. But by 2015, we had the confidence that we could add value to them if they became partners with us.
Right. And also, actually, a lot of this thing for me at Amazon, for us, partnerships are very important. One of the things that's actually influenced me a lot is this book called Influence. And if founders here, if you've not read it, you should read that book. One of the key things he talks about in the book as well is the importance of getting those first few winners and showcasing them, because that helps drive others to adopt your product as well, right? Which I guess is something what happened to you. Once you got some of those private deals done, you were able to get your public sector insurance companies also to collaborate with you.
Yeah, and sometimes, you got to explain to people that they can win too. So I remember this conversation with a very senior gentleman who continues to be a mentor of mine from a public sector undertaking, the largest public sector undertaking. And he said, but we can't compete on this. This online business will all belong to, he took the name of one company. And I genuinely, with full intent, looked him in the eye and said, sir, 6 months, you will be bigger than them if you give me a chance. Okay. Somewhere he could see there was sincerity in that. It wasn't just a made up answer because I had thought about it. They became our partner. They became number one within 3.5 months.
Wow.
Because we had all the business. Their brand was strong. All they needed to do was take it. And for that, all they needed, look, the technology in the insurance industry is not complicated. It's a fairly straightforward. That's why I keep telling people, I don't know why people are getting so excited about insurtechs, because the tech is actually very, very straightforward. You just have to be, it's a normal website, yeah, which is just it's a static product. Customer gives some information, you show him a price, you take a payment, end of story. What is there? Right? But it was about having the will to take that business. And it was quite a shock for them. They became about 35% of our business within 3 months because their brand was so powerful.
We have 2 minutes remaining, so I want to have one final word from you before we end this. And one thing which I didn't touch upon, but I would like you to cover is, what are the big don'ts that founders should not do in partnerships? Right? If we have like the top 2 or 3 don'ts, not to do things.
Yeah, see, as a founder, I would urge you, especially if you need a partner for the long term, to be very long term thinking with them. Do not be short termish. I have seen a lot of founders only think about their org, not think about the partner org, especially large partner orgs. And that leaves you in a very, very bad, you won't get that chance again. If you mess around, you don't get the chance again. I think the biggest advice I have, in my opinion, for founders is, sometimes we are telling investors a story, sometimes we're telling somebody else's story. Just ensure you don't start believing your own crap. Just stay honest to yourself. Because, as long as you're telling other people crap, it's okay. But the day you start telling yourself crap, then you're over. And trust me, it's very easy. It's very easy because once you hear your spiel 3 times, you feel it's right, and you give it to yourself also, and you start sleeping happily at night. That this is it. So I think self-awareness, being aware of your weaknesses, being aware of your strengths, is very, very important. Most successful people you have found have a very heightened sense of self-awareness.
Awesome.
But anyway.
So I think we're out of time. I'm getting a ping from Saina also. Saina, sorry. We have an awesome session coming up. But Yashish, thank you so much. That was a fantastic discussion that we had with you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for spending a Saturday afternoon with all of us over here. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right.
See
Bye.
you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Saina, I hand over the stage back to you.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks a ton, Yashish. Thanks,
Thank
Sandeep.
you.